let's make some 2x4s out of that white pine that we milled the other day. All right, so like I said, we're going to start on this white pine boards, cutting them into 2x4s. That was the whole purpose in milling these, was to make 2x4s out of them. Now we've cut them to the dimensional, not the nomical, the dimensional sizes. So right now, the rough depth is 1 3/4, that we can, if we wanted to plane it down, we could end up with a normal 2x4 that you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy, and you would end up with your 1.5" 2x4. We're going to cut those today at 3.5 for a 4-inch section, or again, dimensional, 3.5 for what you would buy at your big box stores. If we wanted to, we could keep them a little bit bigger, but since they're going into our basement in a construction project that has store-bought lumber, we're going to supplement some of that store-bought lumber with this. We kind of have to make at least the long dimension match, which is 3.5. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that. We'll get everything set up. So if any of you guys are working out of a small garage or small workshop that doubles as your family's main storage facility, you can understand the struggle that you have. The first thing is storage. In here, we're trying to utilize the most we can of our storage. This is just the best that we found so far. We obviously have kid stuff in the background, and all that stuff kind of needs shuffled around and moved in order to make this work. But it just goes to show that just because you have a small area, don't let that hold you back. You can still get some of these tools and get this stuff done for yourself. Don't be intimidated by having a small area that you double as family storage. Not to mention the dust. There's dust literally everywhere in here on everything. So that's why we like to keep as much as we can in these bins. That way we just take the air compressor and blow it off a little bit. Let's get to work. So why don't you watch me move all the stuff that I need to move to get to my sawhorses so that we can set this up and get them moving. And don't worry, after we set the sawhorses up, we're going to put all this stuff right back over here. Bikes. Everything has to move in a small space is the problem. Again, I can't stress to you how not big of a deal it is to move this stuff. I can't stress how not to worry, guys. If you guys don't have a big space to work in, you're sharing it with your family storage, don't worry about it. Some people do it, and it works. Don't worry about it. All right, we're going to start off with this board. As you can see, I did a little bit of planing just on the end portion here to see what it looks like. If you're doing 2x4s for wall material, you don't have to worry about planing. No one's ever going to see this side. It doesn't mean anything for the structure. It makes no difference. All we got to do is make sure that this edge is cleaned up and level, and that's it. All right, so this is what we're working with here. Let's get it right over here to the end. So if we look down this end grain here, we can see that it's, boy, it's not, we got a lot missing on each side. So we just have to shore that up a little bit. And I'll show you how to do that. It's pretty easy. Okay, so this is everything that we're gonna need. A circular saw, tape measure, our speed square, a chalk line, and a pencil. And that's literally all it's going to take to get this one side squared off to where we can send her through the table saw. Come on. So another thing you're going to need is a mostly straight 2x4. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this whatever the smaller end is, which if we grab our tape measure, we can see which end is the smallest. We have 13 1/4 on this end, and we have 14 1/4 on this end. So we pretty much lose an inch on this end. So we're going to take this as close to the edge as we can get. We're going to run this chalk line down, and if you notice, we are going to lose some here in the middle. I'll show you what that looks like. So you can see right here where the chalk line is. Now we're losing a lot down on this other end. We're losing probably the better part of 2 inches. So what we can do to get the most out of it is we can take our short end in a little bit and take our long end out, and that's going to minimize our loss on that end. We're going to split it across the whole board instead of just putting it at one end. And with the way that the grain goes, we're going to try to stick with that grain, that straight grain. We'll try to stick with that a little bit too, so get the most structure out of this that we possibly can. So we'll just move this over just a little bit to about right there. We'll give this a good pull, and we're just going to catch the edge of that right there, just on the very edge of it. And we'll snap that chalk line. So that is our chalk line. The only thing we'll need to do with this chalk line is just add to the edge here, and that's it. Just because the end of the chalk line that has the catch on it, you have about, what is that? About 1.5 inches that there's no rope tied to. So we just got to finish that off a little bit is all. Okay, now that that's taken care of, we got to do one thing. I'll take the battery out while we're working with this because we want to be safe. And we want to measure from the edge of the table here to the inside of the blade. And I'll show you why we need to do that. So this is 4 inches. 4 inches to the inside of the blade. And so what we're going to do is we're going to utilize that 2x4 as a very, very inexpensive guide in order to make this work. And I'll show you how to do that. We are going to use screws. Don't worry about it, guys. Screws are not a big deal, especially in a 2x4 like this that is just going to be used as a wall stud. It's not going to be a big deal. So we're going to sink a couple screws along that 2x4 in order to hold it in place instead of using clamps, because honestly, I don't think any of my clamps are big enough, and that's okay. We'll make do. So right here is the importance. We're going to measure 4 inches from the line here to right here, and this is where our 2x4 is going to lay, is right up against that. We'll do the same on the other end. This is the point in time where I'd like to remind everybody, measure twice, cut once. So what I had done here was I sat on 2 and then measured it 4. That only gave me 2 inches. I need to measure an extra couple inches there. So if you see, we have 2 inches, so I need to go to 5 inches to make my 4 inches. And you know, I could have edited that out, but I want to be honest. Here we are. Whenever that stuff happens, guys, it's not a big deal. You just measure it again. Like, who cares? Accidents happen. We'll just get this 2x4 sat on, and again, like, we're just working. We're just having fun here. All right, so all we're going to do is we're going to get this 2x4 we'll start off on this end and just get one screw in. And all I'm using is just, they're actually exterior trim screws. These things are awesome. I love these things. They've got the real small head on them. So let me show you a fatal flaw that I was not anticipating, but we can fix. And again, this is 100% what happens during projects. You try to do something one way and you realize that it doesn't work. Luckily, I only got one screw in, but I'll show you. Come here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to set our depth. Whoop. Want to set our depth on our saw to where it's just sticking out of the bottom, just like that. We'll tighten that down. This is my problem. I will be riding on this thing here. I can't get tight up against it here. It's just my motor here sticks down too far and it hits off the 2x4. But we can take care of that. We'll just switch over to using like a 1x6, which I just happen to have, I think, an 8-foot 1x6. So we can just do that. Can't go any more realistic than this. So yeah, I have an 8-foot 1x6. Let's pick the straightest edge here. We'll go with this. And it's the same. We're just going to set it at 4 inches and it'll be good. The only difference that we're doing is we're switching from using 3-inch screws, because we were going to utilize a 2x4, and we're going to switch to 1 inch and 5/8. So we're just going to grab a couple of them. It's the same little, the same little head on the end. We don't need a whole lot to hold this board down. So, but this is a semi-important cut, because of this is what's going to give us our edge, our finish edge. So again, doesn't take a whole lot to hold this down. Couple 3 screws and we're good. Safety first.
So it is probably about this time. I'm looking and I'm saying, something's just not right. My line is growing closer and closer to the inside of my blade. And I even look around, I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, we'll just keep going. What's the worst that can happen? And then I think it hit me. Right here. Defeat.
So in the hopes of being 100% transparent with you guys, you'll notice on this cut here that we're going a little off course. And I'm looking at the board and I'm thinking, this board is straight. I looked at it. It's straight. It sure is straight. Come with me. I'll show you what happened. If we look here, oh no, we got to go to right there. There's our mistake. That'll give us our straight board. So luckily we just started wonky and then we came out. We didn't go in. So it's fixable, not some of my finer work. So if you'll notice here, we look down the board here, we can see that's kind of weird. There's a lip there. How'd that happen? I'll tell you how it happened. My motor on my circular saw was still just a little bit a little bit too low to get over top of this 1x6. This is a sacrificial 1x6 that I will not be utilizing again. It's going to be used just for all these boards. So I took my planer and I planed it down. So that's what happened. Transparency, real content. That's what really happens. Those other people that do this kind of stuff on YouTube, they make these mistakes, but they never show you. Aaron's honest. We'll throw that back up. Now we have the start of 2x4s. So the next thing that we are going to set up is our table saw. Come here real quick. This neat thing right here is a catch for dust. It just goes onto your dust collection port, right like this, and then it catches. Now, you do need to empty it out every once in a while. Not a big deal, especially for a professional homeowner such as myself. I can empty it out. I can handle that. But it keeps it from blowing all over the floor and from running a shop vac or a dust collection system, which arguably I probably need that in here. Anyhow, it's neither here nor there. That's hooked up. All right, so for these cuts, I'm not going to need my feather board, at least not right now. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. I'm gonna move this table over just a little bit. All right. So one of the things that we're gonna do here is we're just gonna measure and see what the most is we can get out of it. And then we'll set our fence for that. Rip the first one. Of course, we want to try to get 4-inch increments. So, math. So this end is, we'll say 12 inches. Let's go to the other end. This end is 13 1/4. Now looks like we can cut it at 12. If we cut it at 12, we can get a bunch of 2x4s. I love it. I love whenever plan comes together. And remember, we're only doing 3.5-inch boards for a 2x4. So it's essentially going to be the same process. We're going to cut it 12 inches. So we're just going to set our fence here. I do have the fence already calibrated. So 12 inches should be perfect. The one thing I am going to do and use this little nifty tool here. This is a Kline digital angle gauge. Come here, I'll show you how it works. All right, so we'll turn that on. We'll get it to 0. And we're just going to why aren't you at 0? 0. No. There. And then we're going to put it up here. And we got 89.9. Totally fine with that. We're rocking 89.9. One is well within their abilities to ask, or reason to ask, do I need that digital angle gauge? Absolutely not. You can do the same thing with a speed square or a combination square. You put it up against and it's flat, it's flat. But it's more accurate. So I like it. Okay, so pretty much like you get at the big box stores, right? Minus the width here. We have about 1 3/4 inches, a little over 1 3/4 inches on the width. The width is not a big deal. It just gives you more meat in your wall to screw into, so that isn't a big deal. I made them big, that way if I wanted to finish them, I could plane them down. But we have 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. Yeah, I mean, these are 2x4s. I couldn't be happier. It worked out great. All right, guys, that's a wrap. We made 2x4s out of a log, really. It's super cool. It's humbling. It's very sobering to see the work that goes into making your own lumber. It really, really makes you think of how they used to do it in the old days. Very appreciative of being able to go to a big box store, go to a lumber yard, and be able to pick up lumber and just throw it in the back of your vehicle. It's a lot of work goes into this, but the feeling of it, you can't change that. We made a lot of mistakes today, guys. I want to be as straightforward as possible. You saw that. And I hope that you guys learn from my mistakes so that you don't make the same mistakes. We're all learning together. That's the point here. We want to do everything to the best of our ability. So that's the bottom line. The Bible tells us, the good book tells us that we need to do that. We have to do everything to the best of our ability. Ecclesiastes 9:10 actually reads, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. And that's what we need to follow. We need to keep that in mind whenever we do anything, right? We want to do the best of our abilities. So I think that's going to do it for me today, guys. Remember, keep your hands dirty and your souls clean. Keep me in your prayers. I'll keep you in mine, and we'll see you on the next one.